HR supply chain, highlighting and showcasing solutions for the most complex challenges facing the industry in 21st century by our team of subject matter experts and mentors. Broadcasting every week, all year round, we will present the most up-to-date series of podcasts and webinars.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Bicara Supply Chain. This is Nur Hadi, host, and today we have a very special guest, Andrea, assistant professor at the Florida International University and based in Miami, US. Thank you for being here, Andrea. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Okay, so the topic for today's episode is the role of human resources management for better supply chain management. But before that, can you please brief a bit about yourself and your professional background?
Sure. Again, thank you so much for having me today. So as you can hear from my accent, I'm not from the United States. I'm from Italy. I moved here in 2017. After years I spent at Polytechnic of Milan School of Management. It is an engineering school, so I have a more technical production background. I have a Bachelor of Science in Management and Industrial Engineering, and then I specialize in supply chain management for both my Master of Science and the doctorate studies. I work in consultancy for a while in the supply chain management area, but again, then I understand that academia is what I wanted to do. Particularly in the supply chain, my area of interest is purchasing and inventory management in both the private and public sector. Here in the United States, I work with several government associations, such as National Association of State Procurement Officers and an IGP, National Institute of Government Purchasing, on several issues related to public procurement. And as you were saying, I moved in 2020 at FIU Business in the Department of Marketing and Logistics. I was at Penn State University since last summer.
Cool. All right. So this is my first question, Andrea. In principle, what is the linkage between human resources management and supply chain management?
So, especially with everything that happened with COVID, so we saw that several industries realized that effective and efficient management of supply chain processes, so the typical plan, source, make, deliver, and return activities, is the core of a successful business. So being excellent in supply chain management in 99% of the cases means being one of the most important players on the market. And more than any other area, supply chain management and the supply chain management departments depend on people characteristics and human capital. If you look at some recent reports from consultancy companies, I just have in mind Deloitte and McKinsey. For example, I remember one from Deloitte that was very recent in 2019. We see that amongst the priorities of multinational companies, we have hiring the most technical and competent people for the supply chain units. And there is a growth in investment to train supply chain people in terms of improvement of leadership and advanced supply chain competence. And these investments are growing year after year more than any other company area. So this practical evidence allows that successful supply chain management is enabled by what? Recruiting, empowerment, and retention of human talent. And all of these are typical HRM processes, and this is where it comes a strict connection between HRM and SCM. We've seen several reports and studies that demonstrate that companies with weak human resource practices and departments have also weak supply chain. So we conclude that proper human resource management is, first of all, critical to create appropriate human capital to manage complex processes, and also to help supply chain to grow, because supply chain processes and activities are based on people. Another critical lever that companies need to exploit in today's business environment, besides people themselves, is the ability to acquire and utilize external knowledge to advance and create competitive advantage in their organization. And if you look at supply chain, especially in the supply chain environment, people interact with suppliers, logistic provider, governments, and other competitors in different industries and geographical areas. So supply chain professionals need to be able to learn from this environment and use their knowledge to create further organizational improvement. And again, this is something that HRM and HRM practices can enable. This is the so-called knowledge-based view of organization, which again establish a clear connection between HRM and SCM that many companies need to exploit in order to again create further competitive advantage.
Yeah. So based on your research, Andrea, would you please share a bit on how do individual relationships and skill of a supply chain professional contribute to supply chain growth?
Sure. As I just explained, this connection is very important. So we try to investigate a little bit more this aspect and what kind of relation, the nature of this relationship in our research. In particular, we identify two key aspects at the individual level, so at the supply chain employee individual level, that can contribute to supply chain performance. So the first of all is the so-called social capital. At the company level, acquisition of knowledge happens through the interaction with external supply chain stakeholders. And this knowledge exchange intensity strictly depends on the depth of the personal networks of employees. Of course, we are talking about personal networks in terms of assets. So I'm referring to the extent to which supply chain professionals have established connection with influential people and or organizations, such as manager in other companies, partner at consultancy company, professors, government representatives, and so on. So a strong and reliable professional networking can improve communication, motivate discussion of ideas, and ultimately contribute to new knowledge generation that the employee can apply in their organization and supply chain. Also, a stronger social capital helps supply chain professionals to improve and evolve their set of skills. And this is the second key aspect that companies need to focus their attention on. So individual skills and competence are core for successful organization. But especially in supply chain, there is still a very blurry vision, especially from an HRM perspective, of what are the key competences that companies need to look for in their supply chain management involvement. Yeah. When I usually discuss with HRM professionals, I refer to a popular, let's say, model that one of our colleagues in the supply chain management area developed in 2018 that basically distinguish key supply chain management competence and skill in 4 areas: technical expertise, management skills, interpersonal skills, and analytical and problem-solving abilities. My rule, and again, I want to point out that that's my rule, that's not an HR rule, is that a supply chain employee need to be excellent in at least one area and be acceptable or to be developed in the other 3. Mm-hmm. Why? Because thanks to their skill excellence in that specific area, supply chain professional can put into action externally acquired knowledge and contribute to supply chain organizational performance in that dimension, but also being motivated to improve in other competence area in their professional growth.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. This is another very important question, Andrea. What advice can you offer to the supply chain leaders to grow their team member skills?
Yeah, so again, that's just my view, but for my opinion, growth of skill is mostly pushed by individual motivation. So we live in an active world, and especially in big companies, the need to learn and improve need to be employee-driven more than company-driven. So what should be done in practice? So 2 things. we discussed about the role of social capital and professional networking. One of the best ways to increase the connection with the influential supply chain people is to be part of professional associations. The SCM landscape offers several options. The Association for Supply Chain Management, ASCM, APICS, the American Production and Inventory Control Society, CSCMP, the Council of Supply Chain Management Professional, and in the purchasing area, with which I'm more familiar with, we have CIPS, Charter Institute of Purchasing and Supply, and ESM, the Institute for Supply Management. And that's just to mention a few. These associations are not only opportunities to be in contact with other supply chain management professionals in other industries and areas, but also opportunities to grow personal skills by attending workshops, courses, and getting external certification.
Yeah.
And this is connected to the second aspect, training. There is always something to learn in the business world. Participating in training courses, attending conferences, and professional events, in my view, is essential to improve the skills that I previously presented. And this requirement should come directly from the supply chain employee through the, let's say, their like voluntary aspiration to grow their skills. So in my experience, forced training really doesn't work. You become a Lean Six Sigma expert if you want to be, not because your company forced you to get this certification.
Yeah.
And so supply chain employee must be proactive, and company, of course, must be receptive of these needs. And here is where HRM comes in, because a sound and structured HRM department can help stimulate, motivate, and facilitate these processes.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So before we close today's topic, Andrea, do you have any other key takeaway that you would like to share with our audiences?
Yeah. So I have, let's say, I want to like summarize everything I say, like in 4 points, 4 key points. So point 1, relationship with other people are important, especially in supply chain. Second, very important, there is always something to learn. People never stop to grow. 3, to be successful and excellent in supply chain, you don't have to be strong and excellent on everything. So supply chain people need and can learn by doing and have a career path that is shaped toward growth and development. Yeah. 4, the role of HR department is critical in these aspects. And in several industries, there is still the need to raise awareness in HR professional in this sense. So that's where companies should work a little bit more, because supply chain competence and skill and growth in HRM department are still like a blurry aspect to deal with.
Interesting. Awesome. All right, Andrea, I actually still have a couple questions, but we are running out of time. So once again, thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to speaking with you at another time. See you and bye for now.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be with you.
At Bichara Supply Chain, we are committed to driving global perspective to embrace technological adaptation in improving process efficiencies. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share Bichara Supply Chain. And stay tuned for the latest updates. To learn more, visit our website www.bicharasupplychain.com. Thank you for listening to us. We look forward to seeing you at our next episode.